Hi, I'm Ryan from Amber Elm. Meet Kimmy. Kimmy is my new collaborator. I built her in VCV Rack, and it stands for Collaborative Module for Idea Exploration. She's basically just a generative patch that will spit out random notes in a given key. The notes are sent in through some effects processing and will loop forever. She comes up with some pretty beautiful ideas and is really fun to play with. Okay, I'm going to stop referring to Kimmy as her now because it's starting to creep me out a little bit. But joking aside, it was a really fun and different way of composing. But it did raise a few questions that I will go into later. But for now, I just wanted to explain the patch in VCV Rack, talk about how it's changed the way I compose for this week, and also just kind of go into some of the pros and cons of using something like this. So here is my Kimmy patch. At the heart of it is a module by Stellaire. It's a Turing machine based on the Music Things Turing Machine Eurorack module, and basically it is just outputting a random set of notes that I've quantized to C minor, and it's being fed those notes by a host instrument. In this case, it is the Glenn Simcock Felt piano, and I have that running through the sequencer, and all of that is running through Chronoblob 2, which is just a dual delay that gets real weird if you mess with it. It's pretty fun. And then I multed the outs to go one into just one channel of the mixer, and the other is going through this delay. And so basically what it allows me to do is separate the reverb from the delay, which I like doing, because then I used a few LFOs to work the pan knobs. So I have the pans moving at different speeds, so they're all kind of passing each other in the mix in the stereo field, which I thought was kind of nice, and they're all clocked over here. I added these little blips and bloops, which you come over here is being run by the Audible Instruments, which is basically just a replica of plates by Mutable Instruments. It's a really nice module. You have two different sources. These in the red are sort of the rhythmic ones, and these are fun oscillators to mess with. Again, I have them running through a Turing machine and quantized to C minor and running through the plateau reverb, which is a really great reverb. I use it probably way too much when I'm doing anything in VCV Rack, I've found. And the other blips and bloops are coming from this plates module, but this time, like I said, there's two different kind of sources. I have it more of a rhythmic one over here that kind of happens every so often. Let's see if we can catch it doing its thing. Yeah. So it's just adding some depth and some texture. And the last thing is for the bass sound, it's basically just a standard synth. It's a VCO going through a filter, an envelope. I did quantize it to C, and it's running through a sequencer. The LFO is running the filter, and I clocked it to its own clock and slowed it way down so the changes slowly over time. The rest of the piece is pretty rhythmic or arrhythmic, I guess, so I feel like I could get away with slowing down the clock. And that's about it. I have it running through the Plateau by Valley again. Like I said, I like using it a lot. And that's basically it. I really like Kimmy. She's been a lot of fun to work with. So I don't know if you agree, but I find this to be haunting and beautiful. To be honest, it was a little hard to write with it at first, and not because it wasn't doing what I programmed it to do, but because I would just end up listening to it for a while. And just when you would get a little bit bored with what it was doing, and I'd start to lose interest, it would shift its pattern and it would find something really intriguing. My mind would sort of wander with it and wonder what it would do next. And I would get disappointed when it didn't do exactly what I anticipated it to do or wanted it to do. But right there, that is why I liked it so much. It's because it was very much like having a collaborator in the room with you. One of the best things about collaborating with somebody else is they bring a totally unique set of taste and musical experience into the collaboration. About a year ago, a friend that I've known since kindergarten and I went out just to go hang out. We went to play some golf, had some drinks, and ended up back at his studio really late. It was about 4 a.m. And he asked me if I wanted to work on some music, and I'm usually up for that. So we went up and we started to work on stuff. He asked me if I had anything that I wanted to work on. And I had this little piano thing in my back pocket. It was basically just a simple chord progression, but I liked the voicings of it. And I had been just kind of keeping it to myself because I thought with a little bit of work and the right instrumentation or orchestration, it could be something really cool. But I brought it out and we started to work on it. So just a little backstory. I've known Tino since kindergarten. We've played in punk bands in high school and in college together. And currently we play together. I play with his group. We do Americana and blues all around Austin. So we're very attuned to each other musically, and we write very different styles of music. But we also know what each other's tastes are and what we like and don't like in our own respective pieces. I tell you all this because even though we're very tuned to each other musically, I've always found it hard to collaborate with people on my music that aren't into the same style of music as me. Because it makes me, I don't know if anxious or nervous is the right word, but it gives me a funny feeling that they won't make the same choices that I would make in my music, which is also kind of antithetical to the whole collaboration process, but whatever. So we're at his studio. It's about 5 a.m. now, and we've been working on it for a little while. And he says, let me try something. And I say, okay. And he starts to sing falsetto over the little chord progression that I wrote. And it kind of took me aback because it was the last thing that I would have done over what I had written. In my mind, it was an instrumental piece of music, and that was that. But he drew from his own musical experience and his musical tastes, knowing what I liked, and came up with something that I couldn't or wouldn't have thought of. And what we came up with that night is one of my favorite things that I've been a part of this year. Now, I haven't known Kimmy since kindergarten, but I built her. I'm referring to it as her again. I get to sort of program my musical taste with it and let it do things that I wouldn't expect. And in that sense, it makes for a really, really great collaborator. It also brings up a few questions for me about this in particular and about AI in general. I know this is an AI, but stay with me. Comment below with what you think. So let's say Kimmy comes up with a really great melody and I use it in a piece. Did I write that melody? Like, I know I programmed it, but I didn't program the machine that I didn't program the actual module. So can I say that I wrote that? Like, if I was collaborating with Tino and he came up with a really great melody and then on my next single I used that, I wouldn't say that I wrote that melody. So why would I when it's done by a modular unit? I don't know. It's an interesting concept that crossed my mind while I was using her. It's also a concept that's crossed my mind in reference to AI. Like, AI is becoming more and more helpful each day when it comes to different things. For instance, did I write that patch? I don't think I know the answer to that question. Last week I made a video where I basically did a patch for patch copy of a patch made by, I said patch a lot in this sentence, made by Omri Cohen. And if someone asked me if I made this patch, I would say no. This guy Omri Cohen did, and that would be that. How is AI doing it for me any different? Is it different? I don't know. I actually have a lot to say about AI and music, and I've been planning a longer video on the topic. So if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, ding the notification bell so you can be made aware when that video comes out. So using VCV Rack and Kimmy in particular was really fun, but it had its benefits and its drawbacks. So one of the ways I would do this is just let the patch run, and I would kind of jam with it and record the whole thing in Logic and just have this really, really long Logic session file. And after the fact, go through and listen to it and take notes of parts that I thought were particularly interesting, and then kind of put them all together. And it was really long and really tedious, but the process of doing it was really fun, so I'd count that as a draw. Another thing is that if you don't really know how to use modular, you can end up with some things that are pretty repetitive. So it might be more trouble than it's worth. So I'd count that as a drawback. On the plus side, if you commit to working with it, it takes some planning, which might seem like a drawback, but I really think it's helpful when you're trying to compose a piece. Having a predetermined length, key, instrumentation, where you want your modulations, or if you're going to modulate anywhere, all those things can help make the actual composition process pretty quick. You can decide what you want your patch to do, what part you want it to play in the piece, and it makes for a composition that comes together quickly and is pretty intentional. Benefit. Either way, here's a little video of me and Kimmy playing a piece that this is weird. I don't like this. Wrote together. So I'm editing the video right now and sort of ran out of time. So the performance that I just mentioned, I'll have to make it a YouTube short or its own video a little later this week. Sorry about that. Well, that's it for this one. I hope you have a good week. Go download VCV Rack this week and mess around with it a little bit. It's a free program, nothing to lose, and we can share our patches in the comments below and learn a little bit from one another. All right, well, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.